The ZZ plant is one of the easiest plants to care for, and it's a prolific propagator, so you can multiply it by several different means, which I'll demonstrate later so you can do the same. I'll also cover a complete care guide of how you can look after this, keep it looking its best, and some specific ZZ plant care tips that maybe make it slightly different from your standard houseplant care. Commonly known as the ZZ plant because its main name is quite long, the Zamioculcas Zamiifolia, this also has a few other different names, the Zanzibar gem and emerald palm to name just a couple, and that's possibly because of these wonderful pointed or drop-shaped leaves that have a waxy feel to them and a glossy finish in this really deep green, uniform deep green across the plant, so that's possibly where they get that gem or emerald name from them, because you can see they do shine in the light. And even though it's quite succulent in nature and has lots of small leaves, it still has a real lush feel to it and can give you those jungle vibes in your home. So it gets one of its common names, the Zanzibar gem, because that's an area in which it grows. It's native to countries across Eastern Africa. It comes in a number of different varieties, so there's the standard one just here, and then there's the smaller variety, the ZZ Zenzi, which as you can see is a lot more compact. The leaves are growing much closer together and off in pairs as opposed to alternating, which is often the case with these ones. You can also get them with a purple tinge to them, the Supernova, and even black with the ZZ Raven. So that's quite a dramatic looking plant with glossy black leaves as opposed to these wonderful glossy green leaves. So when it comes to plant care, as I said, this is one of the easiest plants to look after, and we'll start with water. And I did mention before, it is quite a succulent type plant as well. So it grows from rhizomes in the soil, and you'll notice the stems and even the leaves are quite succulent in nature, so it stores a lot of water that it needs, which means it doesn't actually need watering that much. So you can let the soil dry out completely before you water it again. Plus, it is very, very forgiving. You can forget to water this for quite a while because in its natural habitat it is used to having drought situations and having to live through that as well, hence its storage mechanisms. So just let the soil dry out between waterings and avoid overwatering. You don't want the soil to sit wet, as this can cause problems with the rhizomes and the roots. And that leads nicely onto the soil. So again, on that note, it needs to be well draining soil, so you might want to put a bit of extra grit in the soil mix with these ones, just to make sure that when you are watering, it's getting the water that it needs, but any excess is draining through and is drained off. Or if you've got it in a decorative pot, just make sure you remove any excess water once it's had a chance to take up what it needs. So when it comes to lighting, this is just as easy to care for. This is very versatile in terms of where you can put it in your home. So its optimal position is a place with bright and direct light, but it can also do okay in low light positions. So if you've got a spot in your home which has lower light levels, then this could be a good plant for it, as long as it's getting some natural light from a window somewhere in that room. However, it might just grow a little bit slower than it would usually in its optimal conditions of bright and direct light. Although saying that, these are quite slow growers anyway. So when it comes to fertilising, these don't actually need that much compared to other houseplants. So even though it is a green leafy plant, it is quite a slow grower, but you can use a weaker solution than you would with your other houseplants. So if you are maybe fertilising those, use a weaker solution or dilute it down a little bit further before using it on this, maybe every 3 to 4 weeks or every month during the active growing season. So for temperature, these will generally be fine in the temperature range that our homes would be. In their natural habitat, they generally experience hotter days and colder nights, but given that our home temperature won't change that much in range and it's comfortable for us, it will be fine for these two to stay happy and healthy. And on a similar note, when it comes to humidity, they have no specialist humidity needs. Again, when it comes to their natural habitat, it's generally hotter and drier, so the humidity in our homes as it naturally is should be fine for the ZZ plant. So one care tip that makes this slightly different from most other houseplants is that you don't have to pot it up as often, and you might notice when you buy it, or even if you take an existing one, if you've got one out of the pot, you might notice the pot is bulging with the rhizomes that are inside, and that's not necessarily a bad sign because they like a snug fitting pot. So this particular one that I've got does need repotting soon, as it's actually started to break free of the pot, as you can see the pressure that it's putting on there. However, if you do notice the pot bulging or misshapen or anything like that, it's nothing to worry about. That's actually what these plants like. So even when I do repot this just to stop it from breaking this part, I will put it in a pot that's still quite small, only a little bit bigger than what it's currently in, so that it's still quite snug. It just has that extra little bit of room, so it's not pushing on the pot so much. So when it comes to propagation, as I said, these are prolific propagators, and you can use several different methods to propagate them. Some will be faster than others, and some might be more effective than others, depending on what method you go for and what one you feel comfortable doing. So I'll talk you through all of them with a demonstration, and then you can multiply your own ZZ plants with whatever method suits you best. So I've got some leaf propagations which I did in a previous video when I was testing out the effects of rooting hormones or rooting aids and natural alternatives. I'll link that at the end if you want to watch that. It's just the start of an experiment, and this is one of the set of leaves I've taken as leaf propagations. So these are currently propagating, and you can also use stem propagations. So you can cut stem off and obviously put it in water or soil, whichever method you decide to use. You can divide them by taking them out of the soil and splitting up the rhizomes that are there, but you can actually split up the single rhizome too, so you can actually cut them to split up where there are different growths coming off the same rhizome too. So when it comes to the leaf propagation, all you need to do is find a healthy leaf on one of the stems, somewhere that it won't be missed once you've taken the leaf off. So I've used a spot that was just here, so further down in the plant where the rest of the plant is going to mask it, and the stem still has lots of leaves. And all I did was take my knife and then take the leaf off very close to the stem, so that it's still got the petiole of the leaf, although it's a very, very small petiole on the ZZ plant leaves anyway. And then all I'm going to do is pop that up in the soil that I've got. Depending on the size of the leaf that you've got, you might need to plant it deeper or shallower, just enough so that it can stay upright and it's supported. So this one may be about 2 centimeters deep in the soil, and then I'll firm the soil around it just to make sure that it stays secure until it hopefully starts to develop roots. And then that is that leaf propagation done. So I will keep that soil moist to begin with until I either check and see roots or start to see new growth. It can take a while with ZZ plants, so long as that leaf stays healthy, I'll just keep that soil moist until we start to see some development, roots or growth. And then once this does become established in quite some time, then I will start to reduce the watering down to the levels that the ZZ plant prefers. So when it comes to stem propagation, it's very, very similar in that you're just going to take a healthy stem and put it in soil or water. It's slightly different to other houseplant propagations or stem propagations, and that you don't actually need leaf nodes in order for the stem propagation to be successful. You can take the stem from lower down and it can still produce roots at the base of the stem. If, of course, you're taking a propagation from further up the stem with the leaves on it, where you remove the leaves to get the leaf nodes, then you might increase your chances of success with the propagation, but you can do it without leaf nodes as well. So I actually damaged this bit of the stem, so this is now the odd one out. It's only got 2 little leaves on the top. For illustration purposes, I'm going to use this for the video. So all I'm going to do is take my knife and just cut this off quite low down on the stem, and I'll show you what I've got in just a second. It does cut very easily, it's quite a succulent plant even, and there is the stem. This is what it looks like once it's been cut off. No leaf nodes, as I've mentioned. This is just the base of the stem. I'll leave the leaves on top, and all I'm going to do is take this, make a hole in the soil. Again, I want it deep enough just so that it's secure in the pot. So with this one, maybe about 5 or 6 centimeters down, obviously given the depth of the pot that I've actually got as well as, and then just secure the soil around it, just like we did with the leaf. Again, if you were using water, you would just put this in water and then change the water regularly and wait for roots before potting it up. One way to check, particularly with stem propagations, if they've produced roots, you can gently tug on the stem, and if it's got roots, it'll be anchored in the soil, so it shouldn't come loose. Alternatively, I can obviously check in the soil to see if it's got roots, but as long as this stays green, again with the leaves, as long as it stays green and looks healthy, I will keep watering it, keep the soil moist until we see it becomes more established. And then just like with the leaf, I'll then reduce the watering down to the standard amount that the ZZ plant generally likes. So the benefits of doing a stem propagation is you're starting with a bit more of an established piece of plant, obviously with the stem and multiple leaves on the top, so hopefully this will start to produce new growth quicker than from just the leaves. So now the next one that I'll show you is division. So we're going to take this out of the pot and show you the rhizomes and the roots that are in there. Hopefully it's going to come out of the pot and I don't need to break the pot because it was really pushing against it. So let's just see if we can get this out. It looks like it's coming out. There we go. You can actually see that even though the rhizomes were bulging on the pot, there is still quite a lot of loose soil there, so it's not pot bound as such. It was just the rhizomes pushing against the pot. And all I'm going to do is just remove some of this soil so that I can show you how it's been potted up with all of those rhizomes. So I've removed the soil from the roots and rhizomes, and as you can see, there are a few plants in the pot, and you might find that if you've bought a ZZ plant from the shop, often commercial growers will put multiple plants in the pot to make it look fuller. So you might not actually have to do any cutting of the rhizomes to divide it up. You could just take the existing plants that are there if they're on separate rhizomes and just repot them up. So I could do exactly the same with this and put them in 2 separate pots, and then I'll have 2 potted ZZ plants. And as you can see, the rhizomes look a little bit like potatoes, and they're very much like that in terms of consistency as well when we come to cutting them to divide it. And I'll just see if I can show you one of the larger ones, and then we'll use that for the example of actually dividing it by cutting it. If I just bring this a little bit closer to the camera so that it zooms or focuses on it, you'll see, as I said, it looks a bit like a potato with roots coming off it and the growing stems. So you can clearly see this is a good opportunity for a division, because we've got one growth point here, one stem here, a set of 3 stems here, and then on the back, if I turn it round, you'll see, although you probably could have seen on the other side anyway, it's clearly got roots around each separate growing point as well. So this is a really easy one to just cut down the middle, and then we can pop these up separately, again to multiply the rhizomes that we've got. So from this one very large rhizome, if I was going to cut this, I would just take my knife and cut it down the middle so as not to disturb too much the roots on either side or the stems, so that each lot is coming away with a bit of rhizome, the roots and the stem. And the benefit of doing this is obviously these are more established, so they should be successful when you pop them up and hopefully start to produce new growth a lot quicker than the leaf or stem propagations. Now I'm going to have to put this down in order to cut it, because as I said, it is a lot like a potato, and you might hear this cut when the knife goes through because it's quite firm. And there's the cut, so it's just cut through, and now I've got 2 different pieces of rhizome, each with their own growing stems and sets of roots. And I would bring that a little bit closer, and you can see I keep referencing potatoes, but you can see that looks like a potato cut in half. And all I'm going to do with this, because we've cut it and we've given it a raw edge now, is leave this for maybe a day or so, just for this to dry over and callus over. I don't want to pot it up straight away, because it's now vulnerable to, if there's any nastiness in the soil, that can get in and cause issues, and we don't want that. So I'm going to leave that to callus over, a little bit like what you would with succulent leaves or plants when you're doing propagations with those. And then once that's dry, I'll then pop that up and pop this one up. And now from the 4 rhizomes that we had in the pot, I've now got 5 because I've separated that one. And if I wanted to, I could do it with the other larger ones, but I'll just keep with this one, or stick with this one for now for demonstration purposes of the video. Now I've got a different ZZ plant with me now, as I've just butchered that last one for the demonstration purposes of the video, but I will pot all of those pieces up and hopefully get some successful propagations from them. I'll probably have loads of ZZ plants by the time I finish these videos, as I also use them for my rooting aid experiment in a video a couple of weeks ago. I'll link that at the end if you've not seen it yet, and that is where I'm trying out different rooting aids, natural alternatives to store-bought ones, to see what works or what doesn't. So that's part 1, so check that out next if you'd like to learn more about ZZ plants and different rooting aids you might have around your home that you can use to help your propagation success. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll respond to everyone, and as always, thank you for watching Grow Your Wellbeing.